Paul, thank you for joining us today.
Nice to be here. Thank
Where are
you.
you dialing in from today?
I'm in Denver, Colorado.
Beautiful change in the season right now.
Well, the resort's open in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to some
Are you
skiing.
a pretty regular skier? Do you get there every weekend?
I ski pretty often, and I teach kids on
That's
Saturdays.
exciting. It's always fun. I do some mentorship for juniors in high school here at home, and I love seeing the kids evolve and grow into themselves. It's a fun process. That's great.
It is. I have one program. I get the same kids for 7 weeks, and I take them from beginners through to pretty good blue run skiers. So it's a fun
That's
process.
exciting. And learning to ski in Colorado was no joke. I tried to do it with my daughter, and it was not the easiest to do. So that's good. Well, let's get into it a little bit. Maybe, Paul, you can give us a little bit about yourself, what you currently focus on the market, and what kind of brought you to this point, and we can start there.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mark. So I had a long career in enterprise IT. I've been CIO for a few software companies. And this year I actually founded my own advisory practice, Oxonian Technology Partners. And the focus is around early stage companies and how to accelerate their growth. I particularly focus on areas where they maybe are thinking at a technical level, and I'm more thinking at a problem and value level. So that's really the assistance I often provide.
That's great. And what role has AI played so far for you in that space? Is it more supporting you? Do you deploy it for your clients? What are your thoughts on it as a tool?
I'm using AI sort of pretty much for everything that I do, just as a productivity tool for myself, whether it's reviewing contracts, writing articles, proposals. It's really a helpful aid. English was never my strongest subject at school, and AI is kind of to be helpful there. But actually, all of the companies that I am partnered with, they are building AI solutions. And so I think getting a really great insight into how to use AI in terms of development and building solutions. Some of them are doing it to aid their existing product. Others are just AI front and back. One example of that is a company that's building digital employees, and they're providing it with the same background, education, training materials that you would expect, if you're hiring somebody into a role.
Well, that obviously, brings the shadows of people replacement, right? And that's a big concern everyone has with the impact. And obviously, the big tech companies are openly admitting, there's maybe even job destruction as a result. So not just that they're laying off and they're not going to hire
Mhm.
again, but they're also hiring less than they used to. What are your thoughts there? Do you see this as a very negative item, and if you're considering jobs as good, or do you see this as a outcome that's good benefit to the top line and something different for the people?
I think it is progress. Go back, we used to farm the fields with horses and people, and got tractors, and everyone was going to lose their job and so forth. And in reality, they did lose their job, and they started doing other jobs. That's kind of where I think you are at the moment. Companies that try to avoid it, or people that try to avoid it, are just not going to be as competitive. And I think AI gives you the ability to actually have more interesting work. As I said, like I'm not really that interested in English grammar and so forth. So having AI check my proposals and help me with some of that makes the work more interesting. I can contribute the pieces that are much more important. So I feel like you have to be an AI advocate nowadays. If you are a person who's actively using AI to be more productive, and your company is being more competitive, you're going to grow, you're going to accelerate, you're going to provide more value. And that's just how the economy's run for hundreds of years. So being scared of losing your job individually is obviously a big concern. But I think over the economy, it'll accelerate our ability to generate
I
wealth.
think it's a good, you talked about the shift from agriculture, but also in the 70s, we had a whole typing pool, dedicated resources, did nothing but type letters up. Of course, now we all do all of our own pieces with computers and maybe even text to speech to text, right? So we're not even typing
Yeah.
ourselves anymore. And so to your point, the AI can be this super powerful tool for each of us to be a holistic output on the things we care about. Where do you think you're seeing businesses, especially in your space where you're touching, most often taking AI first? Is it more on the sales marketing? Is it more back office? Is it both? Where are you seeing the impact?
I think two things to answer your question. One is it seems to be a lot of businesses that are very cautious, very nervous, particularly the more regulated healthcare, financial services businesses, being very cautious. Also, like smaller companies, some of them are being quite cautious about it and concerned. And I think they lack the understanding and opportunity management. When I introduced AI, the first thing we started with was policy, procedure, security, so that we can have a safe environment to use AI. What I'm seeing is there's a few products out there that are actually very successful. So they tend to be leading the market in that space. So obviously coding, we talked about, that was a leading indicator, whether it was the original kind of Copilot kind of solutions or more nowadays like Vibe coding techniques are coming in. But then there's other spaces, translation from video recordings, note takers are very, very prevalent. And I'm starting to see more around the sales side. If you're looking at functional space, that BDR segment, I would not recommend for people in human employment now, because when you look at the capabilities of what AI is doing, it actually offers a much superior service, I think, to the majority of the BDRs I've ever spoken
Well,
to.
I think it starts to hint at, one of the things many of us deal with in the background are the next generation, right? We have our children that are at different periods leading up to college or in college. What would you tell somebody, let's say in high school today, to think about as a focus for their education? That it used to be you'd get out and if you were coding, you had a job. When you go back to my generation,
Yeah.
if you came out as an engineer, you had a job. What do you think is the safe bet for education for this 6 years?
That's a question I don't think I'm qualified to answer, Mark. But I feel like the jobs are still there, the same jobs. The coding jobs are there. But it's like the typing pool example. Nobody's in a typing pool anymore. They've progressed into higher levels of administration and providing higher value. And if you look at coders, they're still needed. The role is just quite different to what it was. So with vibe coding, I still think it's really important that you have some technical people look at it. A lot of security concerns, performance concerns come out of that. Like, it looks great very quickly, but you've really got to do some work. So I think the key for people being successful is how can they amplify their productivity with AI? And so they come into the interview demonstrating they're an AI expert and how to use AI to achieve the end result.
Well, I think you're highlighting a good point because if you're an AI expert, you would not generate AI slop. You would generate AI outputs and that's that whole human in the process, right? We have to be checking it. I think one conversation I had with somebody was around the importance of any output is still yours, right? So being the
Yes.
author in the end is the critical component. And you've mentioned there's AI that gives you so many inputs, but in the end, you're the one presenting the output, and I think need to be yours. So as we look at those pieces, go ahead,
And I
please.
think I was going to say, well, what I'm seeing is some companies start to do, and I like this responsibility picture, is they're actually putting AI on the org chart. So if you're hiring a digital employee, you know who the manager is. And if that manager's an AI, well, you know who the manager is. Eventually you get to somebody who's human. Ultimately, they have to own the output as you described. They have to own the quality and to be accountable for it. And I think it's really important that you don't just throw AI out there and like, well, who's responsible for this AI? Is it the IT department? Because really IT is typically not in a good place to own the output of these things. So it really needs to have that clear business ownership.
So as you look into next year, what do you think are some of the fun ways we'll see it for business? The shifts, like we already got autonomous cars on the way. We're now got digital people. What do you think maybe is a new next step that's exciting we can all look forward to?
I actually think the digital people is going to mature next year. Uh, Now people are talking about it. It's not really used very much. I think digital employees is probably the big thing for 2026. Not just the ability to actually use AI to do it, but to start to understand how do you essentially motivate them, guide them, control them, monitor them, and make them an effective part of your overall team. That I think will be the big venue for 2026.
So when you're working, I mean, obviously AI is one piece of all these. It's one more tool, no different than the internet or our marketing campaigns. It's all part of the suite the business needs to bring to bear. When you talk to your clients about how to start envisioning the solutions that you help them with, where do you usually start, and how much of it is AI, and how much of it is that just a component?
It's always a component because you start with, well, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And how does that problem generate business value? Because it doesn't matter whether it's AI or it's somebody digging a hole by hand. Like ultimately, you're trying to solve a problem, and businesses pay for value generation. And so I think that's where I always start. And I've had a number of founders come to me and say, I've built this fantastic thing and it has these features and widgets. And I'm like, what problem are you solving? How do you expect the company to get additional revenue, save money using your product? In most cases, they can get there if you help them through that equation. But they didn't start with, oh, I'm going to double the revenue of this company. How am I going to do that? And then work it backwards. They start with, oh, I've got this feature. What the hell do I do with it? So really, it is very much helping them to understand that business value, and then being able to generate the messaging that resonates with companies. Because if you're going to talk to a CFO, don't tell them about your Gen AI feature and agentic and all these kind of things that you're doing. Tell them about how much money you're going to make
Yeah.
for them. I mean, that's the thing that they're
Yeah,
interested
soft and hard dollars. Nothing's changed. Whether it was CRM or ERP before that, now it's AI. It's soft dollars that we will be able to generate, and hard dollars we're going to save. That's what matters. Yeah,
in. It is. That's exactly what matters. That's what sells, same as it always done.
fundamentals haven't changed.
No.
So it sounds like that's a big piece: is identify the value, articulate the value, and then go deliver that message to secure clients. Again, that's no different than it would have been with the tools of the past. That's great. Are there anything you're finding though? I know us on the consulting side, a lot of what we find when we talk to clients to try to help solve problems is everyone's telling them they can solve that problem now with AI, and we know with practical experience. Probably. Well, that was the recent research. 80 or 90% of the AI projects don't return value. We joke we work on the 10% that do, but the point being that how do you make sure that a customer is comfortable that what they're being told can really be accomplished, right? So, is there a way that you advise either your clients that are founders to demonstrate this trust they need to build, or are there ways you advise the buyers to look at things and analyze to get assurances they're going to succeed?
No, great question. I think you've got to start with the business understanding as the problem before you do any analysis of the technology. Because if you just take a step back and look at, well, we need to solve this, forget about AI. Does this really make sense to solve? How we solve it is a different question. And I think quite often people get too excited about, oh, let's try AI and it can do this and they've kind of forgotten the due diligence at the beginning, which is understanding the problem and making sure that the solution makes sense. So that's the starting point. But yes, I think I advise my founders very heavily. They need to have good evidence of how they've solved the problem. And certainly using design partners is one of the routes to do that. So helping them to get themselves set up with some early stage partnership. So get the product for free, but it really is a proof of value that they're demonstrating, and being able to use that value generation to adjust the product, but then to talk about it with customers in the future. And certainly if you're buying something, I think you want to see those evidence pieces. You want to see, show me the client that's done this and made money. Like how is it? Because just ideas could be ideas. Like doesn't necessarily turn into revenue and profit.
But isn't that one of the challenges when we're on the bleeding edge? It's very hard to point to the first success when you haven't had a first client. It's kind of the chicken or egg. You can tell them they need to go prove it, but you've got to get those clients on. And so has that been a piece of that proof of value? Do you think that's kind of the way you can be on that bleeding edge and you get those first successes? Is it might not be a highly paid pilot or proof, but it's a concept.
Exactly. I actually encourage them to do it for free. I give them 3 months, let them prove it. You get feedback, and after 3 months, you can have a paid contract because the value that the company gets is a tremendous amount of learning. And assuming the product works, you get the evidence that you can show to other customers. So it is very important to do those proof of concepts. And we're finding like companies are interested and want to engage and give feedback and help develop the product.
Well, especially once they've seen the value, you can start delivering on. Usually, they think they might get half of what you promise because they think everyone overpromises. So if you can give them
Yeah.
half of what you promise, you'll have met their expectations. If you can do better, you're well on the way to a paid client. That's great. Well, thank you, Paul, for the time today. Is there any other key points you'd want to share with the audience?
It's just one interesting dynamic that I think is happening now is using AI to check AI. I think one of the big concerns is this hallucination, inaccuracies coming out of AI. And what I'm seeing in the industry generally is people are now starting to look at how a second AI or a third AI can validate the work before it actually gets exposed. And that looks like a fairly successful route. Ask for the second AI to like check the sources for this. Has it been made up? Is it real? It seems like a good combination there between different AI
Well, I
solutions.
really like your point there. I really hate one project we were on, and we were seeing about a 70% accuracy output on the first AI. So the team's like, okay, the answer to hallucinating AI or inaccuracy is more AI. And so we just put a second AI and got it to 80%, and put a third AI with 95%. And we finally got to that threshold we were looking for. But to your point, it took these layers of checking and checking. And then a human has to
Yes,
plug in to make sure that 5% gets closed. We have about 100% accuracy. But it's, yeah,
that's always the end. You need somebody taking ownership and responsibility.
100% agree. Well, Paul, thank you for the time today. I really appreciate the conversation.
Nice to chat, Mark. Thanks for inviting me.